If you're going to take the entrance exam for upper secondary school, then stick around for this video. Today, I'm going to solve in detail some math exercises that will help you prepare for your exam. It's worth mentioning that I took these exercises from the 2025 ECOEMS guide, which is for admission to UNAM and the National Polytechnic Institute. But if you're going to take an entrance exam for any other institution that's also at the upper secondary level, that is, another high school or another preparatory school, either way, this video will help you prepare. And the important thing here is that you can start seeing what the exercises are like, and also which topics might appear on your upcoming exam. All right, let's get started. The process I'd like you to follow is this. I'd like you to pause the video every time you see an exercise and try to solve it first. Once you have it, continue with me and we'll see if we get the same result, okay? This is important because many times, as students, you think you have solved the exercise correctly, but it turns out you're falling into some traps. And it also often happens that yes, you really do have it right. You solved the exercise correctly, but the path you're taking isn't exactly the most optimal. That is, many times you take too long to solve a specific exercise. That's why it's important that you don't just stick to the exercises you consider difficult, but also look at the ones that are easy for you, so that you can possibly learn other techniques and be able to do it. The specific exercise says, solve the following operation. Here we have the operation, and in addition, 4 possible answer choices. Well, look, you'll agree with me. In the order of operations, it tells us that when we have multiplication, grouping symbols, subtraction, and division, we should start with the grouping symbols first. In this case, we have brackets, which are grouping symbols. And over here, we also have a parenthesis. So let's start by solving what's inside the brackets first. Okay, those are the grouping symbols, so let's start with that. Let's see. Inside this grouping symbol, that is, inside the bracket, as we can see, we have a subtraction. That is, we have 1,850 minus negative 1,250. But we already know that minus times minus is plus, so actually, inside the bracket, we have 1,850 plus 1,250. Right? So I'm going to start with that. Let's begin. So, doing that addition, let me write it over here. 1,850 minus times minus, plus what? 1,250. This operation, in fact, can even be done mentally, right? It's not that complicated, but I'll do it by hand here anyway, okay? 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 5 is 10. So I write 0 and carry 1 here. I have 9, 10, 11, so I carry 1. And here I have 3. All right. Now we have that the result of this operation, that is, what's inside the brackets, is 3,100, right? So the operation at this point is reduced to the following. Let's put 2 times what's inside the brackets, which we said was 3,100, and then we close the bracket. And this is divided by 5 done now? Also remember that in the order of operations, it tells us that multiplication and division are at the same level, right? And also, there's a little rule that when we have multiplication and division together, we have to do it from left to right, right? So come on, let's do the multiplication, the division, and let's do division. And let's write the division, write division, and let's write it. The division, multiplication, and the multiplication is simple, right? 2 times 3,100 gives me a total, 6,200, and we're going to divide this by 5. Finally, let's do this. Let's see, let's see, in the following way. Look, to make it much easier, imagine that I'm not going to divide by 5, but I'm going to divide by 10. If I divide 6,200 by 10, well, I would just get 620, right? But since I'm dividing by 5, it has to give me double 620, which is 1,240. So now I have that 6,200 divided by 5 is 1,240 in total. Do you agree with me on that? And if not, well, let's do the division. Okay, let's do it anyway, so you can see that, in fact, we're going to get 1,240. 1,240. So we divide 6,200 by 5, right? Okay, 5 into 6. Well, let me change the color. The 5. 5 goes into 6 once. 5 times 1 is 5, subtract from 6, and you get 1. Bring down the 2. 5 goes into 12. 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract from 12 and you get 2. The 5. 5 goes into 24 times. 4 times 5 is 20, subtract from 20, and you get 0. Bring down the 0. 5 doesn't go into 0, so we write that. It goes 0 times. 0 times 5 is 0. Subtract from 0, and you get 0. As you can see, the division gave me 1,240, which is exactly what I told you it would be, right? So where is the correct answer? Well, it's in option B, right? 1,240 done. We're finished. It's that simple. So we've solved our first exercise. Well, which is number 65 here in the guide. Okay, let's move on to exercise 66, which says,
Juan decidió vender dulces y pan.
to start, he invested 900 pesos. What would his sale have been if his profit was 10%? So what we have to do first is find 10%. I'm going to write here. 10% of what? Well, of 900. 10% of 900, it's calculated in a very simple way. We're simply going to multiply the number, which in this case is 900 by 0.1. And well, if I multiply by 0.1, it's enough to just move the decimal one place to the left. Well, just put the decimal point and move it to the left, so that 900 times 0.1 is equal to 90, right? I'm not going to do the operation since it's pretty simple, right? So these 90 are what he got as profit. We agree, because he's saying he got a 10% profit. Of what? Well, of the investment, right? So, if we already know that he made a profit of those 90 pesos, now the question is, how much was his sale? Well, it's very simple. His sale was the 900 pesos plus what he made as profit. Right. That's 90 pesos. And well, 900 plus 90 gives me a total of 990. That's it. So the answer to exercise number 66 in this case is 990. We mark option E. Done. Simple, right? Let's move on. Look, before we continue, here, many people get confused because they say the correct answer is 1,000. So I invite you to reflect on this. Leave me a comment below. Why can't the answer be 1,000? It's also important for you to think a little about why the other answers can't be correct either. Well, why can't the other answers be correct? Okay, let's move on. Exercise 67. A pool fills up in 10 hours and empties in 6 hours. If it is filled for 8 hours and then emptied for 1 hour, indicate what percentage of the pool is full. Let's see. I actually think this exercise is the hardest one in this exam, but it can really be solved in a pretty simple way. Look, while I draw the pool, I'll tell you that I shared this exercise on my social media, and I noticed that most people were answering it using fractions. And you can do it that way, but honestly, I think it gets a little harder when we use only fractions. And honestly, it's not as easy to understand when we do it that way. So I'm going to suggest doing it the following way. Look, I'm going to make up the capacity, because I don't actually have it, right? The capacity of the pool, yes, it's a pool, right? Yes, so I'm going to make up that capacity. I'm going to put any number, but that number should be one that helps me do the calculations nicely. Okay, for example, I'm going to put 120 liters. This is the capacity of the pool that I'm making up. Okay? I'm choosing this number. Well, I'm taking it because 120 can be divided by 10. Well, it's divisible by 10, and 120 is also divisible by 6. But just like I took 120, I could have chosen 60. Okay? It really doesn't matter which number I take, because in the end, anyway, that's only going to serve as a basis for calculation. You'll see. Look, I'll continue with the explanation, and right now you'll realize why I'm doing it this way. Let's continue now. Since it's telling you that it fills up in 10 hours, then I can calculate, since I already have the capacity, I can calculate the fill rate, right? I'm going to call it FEL to mean fill rate, okay? So let's calculate the filling flow. How would we calculate it? Well, simply by dividing the total capacity of my pool, which I know, just as I set it up, was a pretty small pool, which was 120 liters. By the time it takes to fill, which it says here is 10 hours, so let's do the division. If I do 120 liters divided by 10 hours, I get a total of 12. 12 what? Well, liters per hour, right? So what I'm saying is that the fill rate, with the characteristics I'm making up here, is 12 liters per hour. That's the fill rate, 12 liters per hour. Now, let's calculate the emptying flow. Let me write FV here. So, let's calculate the emptying flow. How would we do it? Well, again, how would we do it? We see that to empty, it takes 6 hours. So, these 120 liters, which is the total capacity of this pool, I'm going to divide now by what? Well, by the 6 hours it takes to empty, so I would get. This way, we do the operation 120 divided by 6, and I get 20, right? 20 what? Liters per hour. Let's see, that's what we have so far, right? We already know that to fill up, the flow is going to be 12 liters per hour, and to empty, the flow is 20 liters per hour. We're good so far, right? Perfect, let's continue. Then it says, if it fills for 8 hours, then now we're going to calculate how many liters our pool will have after 8 hours. Because it says, if it fills for 8 hours, but we already have a flow rate, right? So let's do the calculation. So I have 8 hours, and I'm going to multiply this by the filling flow rate, because it says it's filling for 8 hours. So in this case, I'm going to multiply by 12 liters for each hour. As you can see, the hours cancel out. So we remove them, and I'm only left with 8 times 12. We do the operation. 8 times 2 is 16. Carry the 1, 8 times 1 is 8, plus the 1 I carried, that's 9. So I have a total of 96. What? Liters? This means that the pool was filled with 96 liters well. Up to 96 liters after 8 hours, right? But it says that afterwards it's going to be emptied. For how long? Well, it's going to be emptied for 1 hour. So what I have to do is multiply by 1 hour. By what? Well, by the drain rate, which we already agreed was 20 liters per hour. 20 liters for each hour. All right, I would have 1 times 20 equals 20. We cancel out the hours with the hours, and the result is going to be in liters. So that means that in 8 hours, it's filling up to 96 liters. Or well, it's reaching 96 liters, my pool. And in 1 hour of draining, 20 liters are being drained. So if I want to know how much water is in the pool, I just need to subtract, right? So we do 96 minus 20. And 96 minus 20 is equal to 76. 76 liters is the amount of water the pool will have. When what? When it fills for 8 hours and then is emptied for 1 hour, there will be 76 liters left inside. But now remember that we had a calculation base at the beginning. At the beginning, I said that this pool had a total capacity of 120 liters, but when that happens, only 76 are left. So if I want to calculate the percentage of the pool that is full, I just have to see what percentage 76 is of 120. Are you following me with that? What do I have to do in the end? Well, it's really simple. We're simply going to take 76 divided by 120 and then multiply that by 100 to calculate the percentage. Here, as you can see, the 0 can be cancelled out with the other 0, and that's it. I have 76 left. 76 times 10 is 760, and that will be divided by 12. All right, so let's do this division. Let me do it over here. Okay, we're going to divide 760 by 12. Let's see. 12 goes into 76 6 times, right? 7 won't fit. No, it won't. So 6. 6 times 2 is 12 carry 1. 6 times 1 is 6, plus the 1 I carried makes 7. We do the subtraction. Here I have 6 minus 2 is 4, and 7 minus 7 is 0. We bring down the next 0. 12 goes into 43 times. 3 times 12 is 36 subtract from 40, and you get 4. We bring down another 0 and put a decimal point. And now it's going to be repeating, right? 12 goes into 40 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36 subtract from 40. And well, this is going to continue, so I already have to. The result of dividing 760 by 12 is 63.3. And in this case, this will be given as a percentage, so the result will be 63.3%. Therefore, the correct answer is the one in option C. How did you do it? I would really like to read your answers to see if the solution you're proposing is more creative than what I just did here. Obviously, there can be many different ways to solve this exercise, which from my point of view, I insist, is the most difficult one in this guide. All right, sorry, let's move on. Let's go to exercise 68. Determine the area of a box without a lid with a square base, side x, and a height of 6 centimeters. Here's something important. Before starting with the solution to the exercise, it's asking me for the area of a box without a lid. Be careful, because many times, as soon as people see a prism, they want to calculate the volume. But that's not what's being asked. It's asking for the area of the box without a lid. It's also important to point out that it doesn't have a lid. So I would have to calculate the area of the 5 faces and add them up. Why do I say 5 faces? Well, because it doesn't have a lid. Since it doesn't have a lid, that's it. There's 1, 2, another here is 3, another is 4, and the one at the bottom makes 5 faces total. Also, you'll agree with me that the area of the face that's right here in front, the one I'm pointing to here, is exactly the same as the area of the other side faces, right? Why is that? Well, because all of them have x as the base and 6 as the height. Look, this one also has x as the base and 6 as the height. The same thing happens with the one back here and the one on the left. Therefore, if I want to find the total area, well, I would have to add them up.
4 veces.
Face by face, the front face area plus, well, I have the area of the bottom face. So, the bottom. We agree on that. Perfect. So let's go ahead and calculate it. So we put 4 times the area of the front face. And this measures x by 6, that is, it measures 6. Faces that, x, right, raised, right? To this, we're going to add the area of the face that's at the bottom. The bottom face is simply x times x, right, which is x squared. So let's write x squared here. Done. We do the operations and simplify, if possible. 4 times 6, that's 24. What? X, and we just add x squared. Done. The total area of this box without a lid has to be 24x plus x squared. And as you can see, this is here in option B, right? 24x plus x squared. Done. We finished. Easy, right? Let's see. What would the volume be? Even though it's not being asked for, what would the volume of the box be? Well, remember that you calculate that by multiplying the area of the base by the height, right? The area of the base would be x times x, which is x squared, and that is multiplied by the height, which is 6. Simplifying a little and arranging it. This gives me 6x squared. Notice that 6x squared is the volume. It's not the total area of the box without a lid, right? And also notice that 6x squared does appear in the answer choices. So be very careful. Because if you calculate the volume of the you calculate box, the volume, box, and that's how you calculate the volume, calculate the box, option A. And you might have thought you had it right when they really weren't asking you to calculate that. So, pay close attention. Please, this is wrong. This isn't. This is right. Right? All right, let's move on to exercise 69. In a club, the annual membership fee is 900 pesos, and access to the gym is 30 pesos per hour. If Pedro has 1,500 to sign up and spend at the club during a year, how many hours will he be able to work out? Could he, work out at the gym? All right, let's do the calculations. The first thing we have to do is subtract something from the 1,500. What is it? Well, the cost of the annual membership, right? Which is 900. Well, this subtraction is pretty simple, right? 1,500 minus 900 leaves me with 600 e'd. These 600 are what he has left so he can pay for access to the gym, right? Because remember, he just paid for the membership, and now he only has 600 left. So since he's paying 30 pesos for each hour, then he would have to divide the 600 by what they charge him for each hour, right? That's 30 pesos for each hour. We do this division here. As you can see, we can cancel out. Sorry, 1 0 with another 0. And we're left with just 60 divided by 3, which is 20 done. The answer then is that he can only afford 20 classes. Or, well, they're not classes, they're hours, right? Because they were, hours. See, that's all. So he's going to be able to pay for 20 hours at the gym, because honestly, they charged him a lot for the membership. If I were him, I'd look for a better gym, because this one's really expensive. All right then, that's it. The correct answer is the one in option A. Simple, right? All right, let's move on. Let's go to number 70, it says. If I couldn't do a square, that's why I couldn't pay for it. That's a no, that's not it. No, I couldn't, because I couldn't pay for what I could do. That's why. That square, let's see. I'm going to solve it in two completely different ways. The first one I think is the one almost everyone would do, but the second one is going to be a pretty nice way. So please, pay close attention. We already have the square, and now I would do what he would do. But the second one, the one that measures 2x5, which would be everything. I would do what I would do the second, that almost everyone would do. That he would do. That's second, There, done. Now, since it's a square, and they're asking me about but the second one, which would be the one that almost everyone would do, that almost everyone would do, but the whole thing. But almost everyone would do, but that almost everyone, what world, but everything. But the second one is what everyone would do, right? And square it? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the side, which is 2x plus 5, and we're going to square it. Careful, this would be the same as writing 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 5, right? But I think it's easier this way. Since here we already have a binomial squared, and remember that a binomial squared is a special product. So I'm going to write the formula for the binomial squared here for you. If we have a plus b and we raise it to the power of 2, what we need to do is first write a squared. Then we write 2 times a times b. And finally, we add b squared. So we're going to follow this little formula to find out what we get when we expand this binomial squared. So according to the formula, a is equal to a. First, we're going to square the first term, so I'm going to write 2x and raise it to the power of 2. Then we're going to add 2 times a times b, that is, 2 times the first term, which was 2x, and times the second term, which is 5. We're doing well so far, right? Then it's plus b squared, that is, plus the second term squared, so in this case it would be plus 5 squared. And now here, we would just have to simplify a little bit, right? So I get that the area is equal to 2 squared. That's 4x squared. We write it plus 2 times 2, and 4 times 5, that's 20x, right? And then this is plus 5 squared, which is 25. All right. Now we have the algebraic expression that represents the area of our square. 4x squared plus 20x plus 25, which is the one here in option C. Right? It would be this one over here. But let's see. I promised you I would explain it in 2 different ways. This was the more classic one. I think it's simply expanding the binomial squared, but there's another way that's quite elegant. Look, I'm going to say, for example, that from here to here, this little piece measures 2x. Okay, and from here to here, it measures 5. All right? Now I'm going to do something very similar. I'm going to say that from here to here, it measures 5, and from here to here, it measures 2x. Let's see. Here I have that this measures 2x plus 5. That's right, isn't it? And also this measures 2x plus 5. It's still correct, right? Now, let me draw a line. So we draw it like this, and we draw another line over here. Why am I doing this? Well, because now I'm going to find the areas of each of these 4 regions, and in the end, I'm going to add them up. Let's see. Start thinking about what the area of this region is. Well, if this side is 5 and this side is 5, then the area of this region is 25. Right? Now, what is the area of this region? Well, if this measures 5, then this also measures 5. Now, if this measures 12 2x, then I would have 5 times 2x and 5 times 2x, which is equal to 10x. Now let's look at this region. Here we have that this measures 2x and the height is 5, right? Isn't this the same thing? Therefore, this region has an area of 2x times 5, and 2x times 5 is 10x. We're good so far, right? Finally, what is the area? The area of this region, well, its base measures 2x, so this is 2x, and its height is also 2x. Therefore, the area of this region is 2x times 2x, which is equal to 4x squared. Now let's just do the addition. The total area, well, it should be 4x squared. Let me write it down. Then we have plus 10x in total. That gives me 20x and more. And here we have a 25 done. As you can see, we're getting exactly the same answer. Look, I don't know which one is easier for you. Honestly, I really like this one because it's very visual, right? I mean, we can see the numbers. This one here really depends on you remembering how to expand a binomial squared. And here, honestly, we don't need much. So write it down anyway, because this could definitely help you out or get you out of a tight spot. All right, let's go with number 71, which says, 3 members of a family contribute 102,000 pesos annually to the family expenses. If their ages are 20, 22, and 26 years, and their individual contribution is directly proportional to their age, determine how much each one contributes. Notice that this exercise can be solved in a matter of seconds, without needing to do any calculations, just by looking at the answers. Let's see. If it's telling you that they're going to contribute in proportion to their age, it means that the one who is 20 will contribute less, and the one who is 26 will contribute more. We agree because it's supposed to be proportional to their age. Now let's check the answers, it says. The 20-year-old contributes 30,000. Well, we don't have any reference yet. Let's continue. The 22-year-old contributes 39,000. Okay, but then it says the 26-year-old contributes 33,000. Couldn't it be? Do you agree? Why not? Because the 26-year-old can't contribute less than what the 22-year-old contributes. Because it says here that the 22-year-old contributes 39,000. So this isn't the answer, right? They should be in order, shouldn't they? I mean, the numbers should be given in order. The 20-year-old contributes the least. The 22-year-old contributes more, and the 26-year-old contributes the most, since it should be proportional to their age, right? Let's see. Let's check. Option B says, the 20-year-old contributes 33,000, okay. Then the 22-year-old contributes 30,000. No, because look, 33,000 is greater than 30,000. So that's not the answer either. Let's check option C. The 20-year-old contributes 30,000. The 22-year-old contributes 33,000. And the 26-year-old contributes 39,000. That one could be it. So for now, I'm going to mark it with a check, because I'm still going to review. The last one says, the 20-year-old contributes 39,000. The 22-year-old contributes 33,000. No, it can't be that the 20-year-old contributes more than the 22-year-old, right? And it also says that the 26-year-old only contributes 30,000. But honestly, that's not right. So the only one that can be the solution, sorry, well, it's option C. We're done. But look, you are here to learn different methods too, right? Different techniques to be able to. The one of 26 I can do 1,000, and the one of 26 contributes, let's see, the one of 22 contributes 1,000. Not anymore. In that case, you need to have a method, a process, to be able to reach the solution. So I'm going to explain it to you. Look, the first thing I'm going to do is add the 20 years, plus the 22 years, and the 26 years. I'm going to do this so I can know into how many total parts I'm going to divide the 102,000. So, let's do the addition. Here I get 8, and here I get 6. So in total, I mean, adding these 3 numbers, I have 68 years. So let's see how much each year of life contributes, right? So, let's do the division. We're going to divide then the 102,000. 102,000 by what? Well, by 68. Remember that you have to do the calculations by hand, so I'll also be doing everything by hand here. All right, 68 into 102 fits. Only once. 1 times 68. is 68, we subtract. That becomes 12 minus 8. That's 4, it becomes 9 minus 6, that's 3. We bring down another 0, here it fits about, well, I think about 4 times, right? Or maybe 5, let's see if it fits. 5 times 8 is 40, carry the 4. 5 times 6 is 30. And 4, 34, look. Exactly 5 we subtract. 340. Minus 340 is 0, we bring down the 0. Well, here I'm just going to fill it in with zeros, right? It doesn't even take me any longer, because it's all zeros now. So the total is 1,500. Those 1,500, don't forget, come from dividing 102,000 by 68. What does it mean? That for each year of life they have, they are contributing 1,500 pesos. Therefore, if I want to know what someone who is 20 years old contributes, then I will multiply 20 by what they should contribute for each year of life, which is 1,500 pesos. We do the multiplication by 15, that's 30, and we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So 20 times 1,500. That gives me 30,000, right? Well, 30,000 is what the brother who is 20 years old has to contribute. And let's see if that's true. It says here in the answers. Now, since there's one who's 22, this is going to be pretty simple, right? To find out what the one who's 22 is going to contribute, I could multiply 22 by 1,500, or simply take this 30,000. How much did I add? Well, I added 3,000, right? Well, I said 3,000 just like that. With 3 fingers, we add 3,000. Why 3,000? Because we already know that he contributes 1,500 for each year he has. So, if he's 22 years old, that means he has to contribute 3,000 more than the one who's 20, right? So here I would have 30,000 plus 3,000, and 30,000 plus 3,000 gives me a total of 33,000. And look, if I'm getting, sorry, here it is, right? Look, the 22-year-old says he contributes 33,000. Well, could we continue like this as well to calculate the one for 26 years old? Or could we multiply 26 by 1,500? I'm probably not going to do it now, but probably this operation. If it's going to give me 39,000 if you want, do it yourselves calmly so you can see that it really does have to be 39,000. All right, perfect. So let's move on. Also, another thing is 30,000, and the other person contributes 33,000. So you can check how much is missing to make it add up. In total, 102,000, that is, with 30,000 plus 33,000 plus whatever I'm missing, it has to add up to 102,000. I'm going to do that. Okay, instead of figuring it out with multiplication, I'm going to do it that way, so you can see that it'll also work out for me. So let's see. Let's do it. I'm going to multiply. Sorry, I'm just going to add 33 and 30. Okay, let's go. We add 33 plus 30, that's 63 now, to 102. Sorry, 102. I'm going to subtract 63. Okay, why? To see how much I have left, right? This becomes 12 minus 3, that's 9. This becomes 9. Well, all of this becomes 9 minus 6, that's 3. As you can see, I'm getting 39. So that means the one who is 26 years old has to contribute 39,000, right? Perfect. So let's move on. Exercise number 72. If the cost of a kilo of meat in 2010 was 120, and in 2015 the price increased by 250%, what is the price of a kilo of meat in 2015? Let's see. The first thing we're going to do is calculate 250% of 120, right? So let's write it here. 250% of 120. To be able to calculate 250% of 120, it's enough to just write 120. And we're going to multiply this by 250 and then divide all of this by 100, right? All right, let's do this operation as you can see. Since this number ends in 0, and this one also ends in 0, and this one ends in 0, and over here we have another 0. So the operation would simply be 12 times 25, right? Let me continue over here. 12 times 25, we do this operation. I'm going to do it on this side. 2 times 5 is 10, carry 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 1 I carried is 6. 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 1 is 2. So what do I get then? This way, we add it up. This gives 0, carry 1, and here I get 3, right? So, 12 times 25 is 300. Let me also put the peso sign right away. There, let's see. Here, it's important to note that we still haven't found the solution. And actually, the guide has a small mistake, and it says that the correct answer is option C. That is, it's 300, but the truth is, that's incorrect, since the answer is not 300. Because of this is 0, and this gives 0, 0, and gives.
El incremento al precio
0, and this 0, and this gives 0, and this. And this gives 0, and this gives... What should I do? It's just that to the 120 it used to cost, I have to add that increase to the price, which was 300 pesos. So let's put 120 plus 300, and now 120 plus 300, well, that gives me 420, right? The correct answer then is 420. So let's circle that option. All right, let's move on to exercise number 73. What is the sample space of the random process of tossing 2 coins in the air? If C stands for heads and R stands for tails, let's see. The sample space is the whole set of possibilities. As I said, of what can come up, let me put it this way. In simple terms, of what can come up. When I toss the coins, I mean, when I toss one coin and then toss another, it could be that both come up heads, right? Look, this is coin 1 and this is coin 2. I mean, it could be that the first one comes up heads and the second one comes up heads. So it could be heads, heads. Or it could happen that the first one comes up heads and the second one comes up tails, which is represented with an R, so it could be C, R, or it could be the other way around. It could be that the first one comes up R, comes up tails, and the second one comes up heads. Or it could be that both of them come up tails. In this case, so it could be RR, and that's it, right? It could be that I get heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, or tails, tails. So we have those 4 elements in the sample space. Therefore, the correct answer would be the one in option B, right? Look, just as it's telling me HH, HT, TH, and TT. Just as it's telling me that, there are 3 segments with lengths. A is 9, B is 7, and C is 12. The conditions that those lengths must meet to form a triangle are, let's see. I think this problem is very poorly stated, because honestly, it was unnecessary for them to give us the measurements. Let's see. It's telling you that you have 3 segments, so let's suppose here we have the segment that's called A. But the problem here is that they're already telling me how long A is. Then they're telling me that B is 7. Or well, that segment B measures 7, so let's write B7. And it's giving me a longer segment. Well, here it doesn't look that long, but let me exaggerate it a bit more so it looks similar and you can really understand the point I'm trying to make here. We have this one that only measures 7, which is called B, and we have a longer one called C, which measures 12. Let me do it right. So, something like this, right? So this one is called C, and it measures 12. Okay, well, it's asking me about the conditions that need to be met. In order to form a triangle, let's see what the condition is. Well, whenever I'm going to form a triangle, always the conditions. The sum of 2 sides has to be greater than the other side. Always, necessarily. Look, if I add this side plus this side, regardless of the measurements they're giving me here, the truth is, it doesn't matter what measurements they're giving me. The following must be fulfilled. The ones that must be fulfilled must be fulfilled. The following must be fulfilled. Fulfill the following. The following must be fulfilled. 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 If I take the fulfillment, the ones that are the following must be fulfilled, they have to give them to me. Bigger than this other side, look. 7 plus 12 is 19. And 19 is bigger than 9. And the same thing. If I take these 2 sides, well, the sum of these 2 sides is greater than the other remaining side. So it will always be the case that the sum of any 2 sides in a triangle will be greater than the other side. It will always be the case. Therefore, let's look for it. See that? In option A, it says, a plus B is greater than C. Okay, that's true, right? The sum of 2 has to be greater than the other. Then option. Sorry, right here it says a plus c is less than b. That can't be. It can't be that the sum of two sides is less than the other side. Why can't it be? Not just for those measurements, but for any triangle, why can't it be? Think about it. What would happen if I have, for example, a little piece or a stick that measures that, and I have another stick that measures that? Well, I'm going to put them like this, okay? So I want to form a triangle with these two. Obviously, I could bend them, right? But now think about it. The other stick I have measures from here to over here. Let me ask you, could I form a triangle with these three sides or with those three sticks? Well, I can't. Why? Because they don't reach. This one here, look, maybe I could put it around here, and this green one, I could put it over here. But then, it doesn't quite close all the way over here, does it? Therefore, if the sum of two sides is less than the other side, then the triangle won't be formed, okay? In fact, I have a video where I literally grab the sticks and show you that theorem. I'm going to put it down here anyway in the video description so you can go watch it in detail because it's a whole analysis we have to do about this. For now,
Con que ustedes se acuerden que siempre
the sum of the two sides you're taking from the triangle has to be necessarily greater than the other side. Sorry, the one you're not taking. This always has to be true. So this isn't true. The sum can't be less. So we've already seen that option A isn't correct. Now option B says a plus B is greater than C. That's good. A plus C is greater than B. That's good. And B plus C is greater than A. That's good. So this one is being satisfied, right? And well, there's no need to check option C, because I want you to see that here it says a plus B is less than C. Obviously not. A plus B less than C. Well, obviously not. So there's no need to look at the rest. Why would we even check it? The correct answer is option B then. All right, we're done. Let's move on to the next exercise. Number 75 it says. The diameter of a bicycle wheel is 63 centimeters. Indicate the distance the wheel travels in one complete turn. Use 3.14 for pi. Let's see. Let's start the wheel. Let's see if I get it right. Well, it could be a little bigger, for example, like this, okay? And let me draw the diameter, more or less around here. And I'm going to say that this measures 63 centimeters. Okay? We already have the data. We want to know how far it travels. When this wheel makes a full turn, let's see. When this here makes a full turn, you'll agree with me. That
este puntito que estoy poniendo.
Point, it rolls, 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 rolls. The wheel, the wheel, the wheel of the wheel, the wheel of the wheel of the wheel rolls. When we get back to the original position, you'll see that the distance it has, the distance it has is a full turn, right? So, how do I figure out everything that little point traveled? Well, that little point is moving along the edge of the circle, right? So, all I have to do is calculate the circumference of that circle. So come on, let's do that. Remember that the circumference of a circle is simply calculated by multiplying pi by the diameter. Or we could also do 2 times pi times the radius. I'm going to do pi times diameter, since they're already giving me the diameter measurement. And that's it. We're just going to multiply pi by the diameter. Let me put it here. So we put pi. They're telling me to consider it as 3.14, and we're going to multiply this by the diameter, which they say is 63 centimeters. All right, let's quickly do the multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12 carry 1. 3 times 1 is 3 plus the 1 I carried is 4 3 times. 3 is 9, now with the 6. 6 times 4 is 2. 4 carry 2. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 1/8. Now we add them up. That's 2 and 8 here. It's 17, carry 1 here. It's 9 and 1. And we have 2 decimal places. So we put them back in. All right. In this case, what I get is that when we multiply pi by the diameter, we get 197.82. And where is that here, right? In option B, 197.82 done, we're finished. Simple, right? Perfect. So let's move on to exercise number 76. And lastly, indicate the area of the shaded part of the following figure. Honestly, there's extra information here that we don't need at all. For example, well, no, you don't need it. The shaded part. The calculation is everything. Everything that the multiplication of the diameter gives us. That's what we need to multiply pi by the diameter and the diameter. Another one here. Information about the area that is shaded. So let's see the height of the triangle. How much is shaded? If the multiplication of the diameter is, we have the shaded part. So you see, shaded part, shaded of the part. Regarding the shaded part, seeing that this is a rectangle, I insist. So these two lines are parallel. So that means from here to here, how much is it? Well, 2 centimeters, right? Look, since all of this measures 10 while this one is 8. So the answer, well, I would just have that the area of the shaded region, let me put it here. Well, it has to be the area of the triangle and the area of the triangle. You calculate it by multiplying the base, which is 2 by the height of the triangle, and then you divide by 2. Since 2 divided by 2 is 1. I can just remove the 2's, right? So I'm just left with 6. In this case, the units are square centimeters. There you go. The area of the shaded region, that is, the area of the triangle, is 6 square centimeters. So we select option B, and that's it. We're done. Well, that's all for today. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel. Also, I'm going to ask you to share this video with someone you know who is also going to take the high school entrance exam. It's really important for this kind of content to be shared, because that way, little by little, we'll be creating a country with more educated people. See you next time. Take care and behave yourselves. Bye.